Hey guys, I'm Richard Kahui and this is The Final Whistle.
And welcome to the latest edition of Rugby Connection presents The Final Whistle. Now this week's guest, royalty in rugby. I can't say that enough. Absolute icon in the sport. Probably one of my favourite players growing up. World Cup winner, Super Rugby champion, still tearing it up in Super Rugby Pacific with the Western Force. It is the one, the only Richard Kahui. Richard, thank you so much for coming on. How are we getting on?
Hey, Murray. Thank you, mate. Thanks for the introduction. It's probably a little over the top for who I am, but obviously you're a good Chiefs man, so I can understand why you might know a little bit about me as a footy player.
Yeah, you've always been a name that's just been synonymous. I watched rugby religiously, and it was just, I always loved how you played. I loved your big hits, your running, your try scoring, everything. And then obviously, because it's very hard to watch Japanese rugby, it was hard to keep track of your career. And it wasn't until you announced the signing for Force that so happened to be on my birthday that I managed to reminisce again and go, oh, yes, get to watch some Richard Kahui again. So happy days.
Yeah, I actually found out it was your birthday before we made the announcement. They wanted to release it earlier, but...
Yeah. This is when I found out the other day that on July 14th, 2020, Western Force announced Richard Kahui. I was like, nice little birthday treat for me there. So happy days.
Nice.
We do normally ask our guests the same question to begin with, but you've had a hell of a week that no one could have expected, because we spoke, I think it was Thursday, and you were heading out to Melbourne for the big Super round, and then by Friday morning UK time the Force weren't going. Big COVID outbreak. So how are you actually getting on in isolation?
Well, actually, I had COVID maybe 4 weeks or 3 weeks ago now. So actually during bye week. So it actually worked out quite good. I just missed the Brumbies, the second game against the Brumbies, and got out. But then obviously leading into last week into heading down to Melbourne to go and play in Moana Pacifica. The weekend, I think so we played Cole Godwin's 100th game at home, unfortunately lost to the Tars. And then I think the Saturday or Sunday, a few boys started to test positive on rat tests. And then so we came into work on Monday and it was like a skeleton crew. I think we scraped together, of the main squad, I think we had 21 players or 20 players. And so I had a bunch of academy boys and guys actually not even in the academy come in. And with all that, we had a squad of 23. I think we're going to have maybe 4 or 5 debutants at Super Rugby level, 3 in our academy. One boy kind of graduating from outside of the academy, just playing club rugby here in Perth. So we were committed as a team to playing Moana down in Melbourne. I thought it was really exciting. It was going to be a real exciting challenge to have the team that we were going to put out with the guys that we had left and with the young guys and their enthusiasm and excitement. But then, I packed my bags and headed into the HQ on Wednesday morning, so that we were flying out, getting on the bus at 10:30 and flying out later that afternoon. And at 10 o'clock for 4 more of our boys, because we all had to test again, they came back positive, which meant we only had, 19 players available. And unfortunately, we had to call it. Obviously disappointing with the weekend that we all had planned down in Melbourne, and probably disappointing for the guys that didn't get the opportunity to play when, for some of them, that's what they've been working to for, the last 5-6 years.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully you just get the reschedule and it's not just written off. Hopefully that gets all sorted and then the boys chomping at the bit do get a good run out and then you can still march on.
Yeah, that's the hope. I mean, I'd really like to see some of this young talent get a crack. We've used our main squad, or the sort of same 23 or majority of the 23 week in, week out. So it'd be great to see some of these younger boys get an opportunity.
Yeah, fingers crossed. So the first question that we actually do tend to start the show off with is, what actually got you into rugby, Richard?
A dad who was a Super Rugby fanatic nerd slash, just tragic. So like growing up from the age of, 3, 4, whatever my earliest memories are, or at least the ones I can see in photos, I'm in a rugby jersey and got the orange peel in the mouth. And, from 5 years old, I remember Dad pulling the chair in front of the TV and just screaming at the telly. And then I was going through my sort of my primary years. Dad would pull us out of school and take us to the midweek games. So I watched Waikato play the British Lions in 92. I watched them play South Africa in 93, or whichever way around it was. Ramfleet Shield, stuff like that. So rugby was more important than school to my dad. So it was always something that was going to be part of my life, I suppose. And then as I started getting older, and I was actually like through age grades, I was pretty handy. I got, quite often got the best and fairest, and I think he's sort of saw an opportunity there. So then he went and built full size goalposts on my front lawn. So literally everyone in town knew where I lived, and everyone on the street used to come down and play. And unfortunately, I'm not as good a goal kicker as I should be, but obviously worked out in the end for my dad's dream, and obviously for mine too. Like I say, my dad sort of got me into it. I got into rugby myself really because I loved it, and I just loved everything about it. I love competing. I love competing with anything. But like rugby was a way that I found a bit of freedom. Something I was pretty good at. I was small when I was younger, and I loved having big blokes run at me and trying to knock them over. And so for me, it's been a lot of sort of lifelong passion and life full of enjoyment, just playing a sport I love.
Yeah, fair. I couldn't agree more. I mean, it is just the best sport in the world. Let's be honest. It just is.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Obviously, like I mentioned it in the intro, you are a world champion. You have won the Rugby World Cup. You won it on home soil. Does it ever sink in that you are a world champion? Does that ever sink in?
I suppose at the time, and like anybody that's had anything that's had a large build up, like a wedding or a I don't know, like a business deal or whatever. So the World Cup, it was built. I made the All Blacks in 2008, and it was all building towards the World Cup. So it was a massive amount of stress, and I can only imagine what it was like for the guys that were actually making the decisions, the coaches, the senior players and stuff. I was just a pawn, in the team, just trying to do a job and trying to stay there. But when you build up to something like that, and I remember when we actually won the World Cup, how excited I was, like just the sort of normal excitement of winning. And then sort of the couple of days of parade, and then I remember going home, and I just felt like I was back to normal, and it hadn't really happened. And it wasn't until like maybe 2 or 3 months later, I was sitting on the floor, and then there was a documentary on the World Cup, something greatness, or I can't remember what it was called now. Weight of a Nation was the name of it. And I was sitting there watching it, and I started to get sort of teary and get emotional. And I thought, like, that's probably the first time it really sunk in. But now it's like, that's 10 years ago. And it's really actually even hard to recall all the bits and pieces of that tournament. The only memories I have of great ones, and of, winning a tournament that I felt like we were always going to. But it was obviously no less exciting. And looking back, yes, now I still sometimes don't believe it, but it's also that long ago. I very really think about it.
Fair enough. I mean, I don't think I think I'd like just wear the medal everywhere, like in supermarkets, in the cinema, just anywhere. Just won a Rugby World Cup.
Yeah, I've got one sitting up on the top shelf with a few other things as well. So just behind the camera, actually.
Nice. I mean, you bounced back straight away. You got the Rugby World Cup in 2011, and then Chiefs Super Rugby title the following year. How did that compare?
Unreal, but completely different. So going from the All Blacks, where again I felt like I was lucky to be there, and like if there was an order of picking guys 1 to 15, I would have been last. That was how I felt anyway. And it was a huge achievement for the team and the country, and there was a lot of excitement and energy around winning that World Cup at home. And I felt like when I look at the World Cup as a whole, I felt really proud to be a New Zealander because of how we carried ourselves during that tournament as a country. You drive places, all the flags are out, hanging out of cars. Everywhere you went, there were fans wearing, all different kinds of jerseys, and it seemed like it was a tournament held in really good spirits. So I have really great memories of that. But then going from the All Blacks, where, like I said, my impact was literally only the 80 minutes or whatever it was on the field. Then going to the Chiefs, where, you're the leader in that sort of leadership group, and you're making decisions with the defense, and you're far more involved and you put far more into it. It felt it was a different feeling. It was a huge feeling of sort of not just for me but for the club, of sense of achievement. It was something the Chiefs hadn't been able to do before, and we had a squad at the start of the year that didn't look like much. Obviously, we had Sonny, and we had a few guys that we'd never really heard of. Your Brody Retalix and Tikoida Tuma, and all these guys that hadn't done much. And then they came and played like superstars, and we had 35 players that all lent their hand throughout the season and made a huge difference. And then when you talk about winning the final, it was like obviously a fairly emotional time for everyone. And for me, I was injured. I had busted my shoulder during the end, didn't actually play. So as the game goes, it's obviously I was super. The sense of achievement and I was ecstatic and just happy for the boys and happy for the Chiefs, and because that's something that we'd all worked so hard toward. But then at the same time, it did feel a little bit like there was a tiny bit of disappointment there, not actually being out there and being a part of it. And I think you'd say anybody that is a player wants to be out on the field and wants to be the guy that's actually putting in the sweat and the blood and the sweat. And, so that wasn't me. So part of me feels a little bit disappointed that I didn't get to be there, but I feel extremely proud of all the stuff we did leading up to that and getting the team to that point.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get what you're saying. I mean, when I'm injured or ill, I can't even go and support the boys because I'm as much as I want to, because I love rugby. I get there and I'm like, I should be out there. I should be on the field. I should be, like you said, bust my gut, the blood, sweat, the tears, all that. I should be doing that instead of just standing. Come on, yeah. But obviously, as far as cheerleaders go, I'd like to rank myself number one. I give a lot of energy from the sideline. Yeah, that's fair. You do. I've had plenty of experience too, unfortunately. Have you ever blown the voice out, sharing on the boys? Yeah, regularly. Yeah, good. Because I'm kind of the same when I go to Edinburgh, because I'm an Edinburgh fan, or Scotland for the internationals. Blow my voice out on a Saturday, get it back about Tuesday or Wednesday, and then go again. Yeah, that's the sort of fans we need in the crowd. I mean, I'll probably do it if travelling wasn't an issue. Probably do it down in Perth and just shout at you and all that as well. But nice. That's a pipeline dream now, just because of money and travelling and some rules are COVID. And COVID. Yeah, God, it's just a pain. It's just annoying everyone. Oh, it's an absolute disaster. It is, but it feels normal now. I don't know how it is on your side of the world, but it feels a bit more normal here for the time being. Yeah, I think we're sort of working through the sort of last few phases. I think the East Coast is starting, and they've taken away the close contact rules, and I'm not even sure they have to wear masks inside anymore. So Perth over here in WA, we're still a little behind, probably 4 months behind the rest of the country, but won't be long, and we'll be back to normal, and we'll be able to travel again. And meant to be going to Bali in August, so hopefully that all works out. Just rub it in, Richard. That's fine. What happens when you live in paradise, Well, that's very true. I mean, you have been other places, bar New Zealand and Australia. I mean, to me, you were kind of one of the first big names to go across to Japan. So how was your full experience in Japan?
Japan for me is like, I didn't win a title like the Chiefs or World Cup but it was one of the greatest experiences, sporting and cultural experiences of my life. And I went there. So in 2012, like I said before, I got injured, missed the Chiefs winning a title. I came back 2013. I think I played 1.5 games, blew out the same shoulder, and that was the end of my 2013 season. So I didn't play in that final either. And I just remember being absolutely sort of gutted with with myself, with my body, and then with where my career was at. And made the decision to go to Japan because I'd had enough of the disappointments at that stage, and the sort of the mouse wheel of trying to rehab and get back to play, and you start to play better, and you get injured again, and then there's a bit of a vicious cycle there. So anyway, when I made the decision to go to Japan, it was tough because all I wanted to really be was an All Black, and but we made a decision from a career point of view, financially, and trying to extend my career. And when I got there, I didn't really get what I expected. I got far more. When I first started in Japan, it was only 2 foreigners on the field. I think now there's 5, and there's no limit on guys that have been there 5 years or more. So I think some of the teams are running sort of 9, 10, 11 foreigners on the field at one time now. So, but when I went there as a one of the cap foreigners, you had I felt like you had more of an impact on the game because there was only 2 of you, and it was really obvious if you played well and if you didn't. I actually really enjoyed that part of it, and it gave me a chance as a player to put a bit of like just internal pressure on myself and just try and be better every week. And we got pretty honest feedback from the Japanese coaches, which was always good because when they're paying the salary, they want to see what they're paying for. So from rugby point of view, but it was fun. It was like there wasn't as much pressure as when you're playing Super Rugby week in, week out, and every game you're playing Osai Toyaba or you're playing Conrad Smith, and there's always the comparisons between you two and like the All Black chat or whatever. There just wasn't any of that. You'd go out, and as a team, majority of which is amateur rugby players, so they all work jobs. I think we had 5 full-time professionals in our team, and they're all foreigners, and you're only allowed 2 on the field. So everyone else was a company worker. So we'd go, we'd have fun, and we played really good, fast rugby. The rugby that you're starting to see now, well, not starting to see, but you've seen the last sort of 4 or 5 years from the national team. It's just really quick rugby, and it's actually really skillful. And a lot gets said about the size of them, but the courageous and what they don't have in size, they sort of substitute for that. Being nimble and being able to move the ball around, and they just run teams off their feet. So the first year I got there, I was like 108 kilos. I'd been stuck in the gym for nearly 2 years, and I was way too heavy. And learned pretty quickly that wasn't going to work up there. So from rugby point of view, I absolutely loved it. We were very close to winning a couple of titles, didn't work out, but we were very close, lost in 2 or maybe 3 finals. But then culturally, to go out with the boys after games. So games are sort of typically in winter, you're 1 o'clock in the afternoon or somewhere around there. So you're done at 3. We're 2 minutes on the train to the center of Tokyo. So you go out with the boys, you'd have drinks, and you'd get to know each other. You'd learn your Japanese and the informal part of the Japanese language, and then you'd get home, and you'd be home by 11 o'clock midnight. And it was a really great experience, and made some really great friends over there. And it's, like I said at the start, it's a part of my rugby experience in my life, really, that I really, really treasure.
Say something in Japanese.
Oh, you want me to say so? Oh, mate, don't put me on the spot. I can. I won't say I'm fluent because I'm not, but I've been there 7 years. I kept on the side for 2 years, so I try to do as much as I could in Japanese, and I used to really enjoy the huddle. So I'd get in the huddle, and so one of my friends before I went there, there was 2 of the Japanese boys actually came over and sort of did a train on thing with the Chiefs, and they actually happened to be from Toshiba, Brave Lupus, the club that I was from, and they ended up staying with me at the end of their time because their hotel sort of had run its course, and there was that the club was no longer paying for their accommodation. So I said, come stay with me. And he had Morita Yoshikazu, his name, is great English. And so fast forward sort of 5 years later, when I'm there and I've been there a couple of years and I'm the captain now, I'd stand in huddles and, you know, I'd be spitting everything I could in Japanese, and he'd sort of sit there and just nod. At the other side of the huddle would always sort of stand opposite me, he'd sort of nod at me just to say, yeah, what you're trying to say is, it's bang on. And then there'd be the odd time where he'd stand there and go, you know, just he's got no idea what I'm trying to say. But I think the one thing about those Japanese rugby culture, if you're a foreigner moving there, is, you know, the boys just love if you make the effort. And I think anyone that's going to go to Japan, if you make the effort to settle in, to try and speak the language, to try and get out, it goes a long way towards not just your experience in Japan, but how you're received as well. So yeah, I had a bloody great time, and I'm not going to throw any Japanese at you today, but you can take it from me. I can throw a bit at me.
Yeah, it does sound like you were just simply living the dream and having fun doing it, which is always a massive bonus in my eyes. Obviously, you've played, like you've said, you've played for the All Blacks, you've played for Chiefs, you've played in Toshiba, you have played with legends of the sport. I class you as a legend as well. And because you cover so many positions, I can't just clamp down on one bit. So instead of a dream centre partnership, I would like Richard Kahui's dream backline. You could do past, you could do present, anyone you've loved playing with or would have loved to play with, who would fill in those positions. And you could put yourself in your favourite position as well.
My dream back line, I'm going to go Kiwis, just because that's where I'm at. I'd go, my 15 would be, it'd be a tight one between Mills Molina and Christian Cullen, but I'd go with Christian Cullen. Real childhood hero of mine. There's only one left winger that you can consider, and that's Joan Longo.
Of course.
Right winger. Maybe I'd probably go with a Lilia Masanga. And the reason why, because I'm trying to pick a team that's obviously good on the field, but also good off it. Lilia provides a lot of energy off the field. So yeah, I'd take Masanga, I think. Midfield, and if I'm picking a team, for just raw rugby ability, I'd be Ma'a and Conrad. Their ability together as a pair, I think, is second to no midfield pairing in the world probably ever. That's just my opinion, and I'm happy to fight anyone over it. But I would probably go in my midfield for my dream team. I'd go probably Cullen Bruce. If you remember, Cullen Bruce started at the Highlanders, moved up to the Chiefs. I really loved playing with him at 12. And then my centre, I would probably, it's a tough one. I mean, I'll put myself there, but no, maybe I think my 10's going to be Stephen Donald or Yoshikazu Morita from the Toshiba Brave Lupus. And same as my 9, I'm going to go with Brendan Leonard and Takahiro Ogawa. So obviously the Japanese boys, you probably won't have much of an idea, but both my halfbacks, electric, can play, probably more rugby players from a sort of just a feel the game sense. So Brendan Leonard, but the Chiefs and Takahiro, they were both just so great at sort of reading the game and just playing what was in front, not particularly structured. So that's why I'd go those boys. And then back to my centre, now that I've had a bit of a chance to think, I'm probably going to put, for his raw ability and ability to cover anywhere, either Isai Tuiava or obviously the GOAT, and that's Tanu Umaga. Nice.
That is, chef's kiss. There was one thing I'm surprised you didn't mention, and it is arguably the GOAT at 10 is obviously Dan Carter.
Oh, of course, but like if you're picking a team on like actual just on playing, I mean, not that he's not a great man because he is on playing ability, then you would just go through and you just pick all the goats that have ever played for the All Blacks. And I think, then you're probably starting to talk about your guys like Frank Punts and stuff as well. But I'm trying to think of guys more like that either really inspired me to as an All Black fan, or guys that I played with that I thought were great men and played the game and bought heaps off it. And I think that's why I've got so many Chiefs boys in there. And I know Tana's predominantly a Canes man, but he spent some time up in Chiefs country, and that's why he slides in at 13.
Yeah, I mean, he's been everywhere as well. And obviously, like you said, like, who inspired you on and who's great off the pitch. So there is a social aspect to it as well, which we love to hear.
Yeah, of course. I think with any group of people, your friends you hang out with, there's always guys in any group that bring a bit more energy or bring a bit more fun. And, like Lilian Masanga is one of those guys that, wasn't a drinker, but would come to every training and he'd be playing pranks and he'd be laughing and he'd be funny and he'd be doing videos. And it's really important in any team that you get the balance right of those guys that can be serious and the guys that can bring a bit of fun, and then being able to balance those together, but then getting out on the field and all having the same sort of common goal and all being able to work together. And I think it's really important to have that balance, because if you're too serious, I think it can be a long, hard season if things don't go exactly how you expect.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. I mean, we've got that, and some of my team, like, you get ones that you can have a laugh with, but then you get the ones. I say that it's the older ones, and I think it's just because this is my first season with that team. You get the older ones that like are very, very serious, very strict, and then like just don't have time for you after off the pitch. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's fine. But like, we've got some fun questions, and I would like you to guess who it's from as well.
Okay.
So I have to ask about your card playing ability.
Card playing ability. Okay, this is going to be. Is it Mike Harris?
Nope.
Is it Michael Leach?
It is not.
Is it someone from the Force right now?
There's someone from the Force right now, yeah.
Oh, there's a lot of people jealous at the Force, Murray. There's so many people. Jake McIntyre, maybe.
No,
honestly, I could list them here at the Western Force.
There's three things you told me to mention. So one was card playing ability. One was buying treats. And I've to mention Ashley and Martin. The hair stuff, apparently.
Okay.
No, I don't think they are.
No. Oh, it's starting to go, definitely, but I'm certainly not going down that road. I'll go gracefully. Who does talk about that? I don't know. There is somebody that does talk about Ashley Martin stuff, so I should know this. But look, as far as card playing goes, there's a bunch of guys at this club that buy me treats regularly. We play for treats, and to this day, this year, I haven't bought one treat, just so you know. So my card quality is second to none. There's a tier system in our team. I'm obviously tier 1 with one other, and I'm not going to name his name. He doesn't deserve that. But it's pretty tightly contested, and there's a lot of guys that want to drag me down from where I am at the moment.
Fair, right. I will say who it is, because we have had him on the show, and he did actually speak highly of you in the interview. It's Byron Ralston.
Oh, Ronnie, of course. Yes, I should have known that. Actually, no, he's the one that talks about it, yeah.
He did speak highly of you in the interview that we had with him. So there you go.
Yeah, I'll talk to him tomorrow, don't you worry.
I had to. He messaged me during the week and he was like, "Oh, you have to mention this when you get Richie on." I was like, okay, that's fine. But yeah,
he's lucky. He's lucky. He got the first punch in, and I can't really reply now because he's got me.
You could say stuff about him if you want. It's all good.
No, I'll get him. I'll get him at work.
I believe you. Obviously, you said that you've grew up with rugby, basically more important than school. What is the best game that you've ever attended?
Best game that I've ever attended, playing or watching?
Both, either or.
Okay, best best game I've ever attended. Ooh, I'm going to say as a spectator, probably the 2012 Chiefs final. That was probably at the time, just because of everything that was on it, was probably the best game I've ever attended. I do have a lot, like, that's like the close second and thirds would be like those, like the British Irish Lions that I watched in the sort of early 90s, or the Ramfleet Shield 93, or probably a very close second would be the New Zealand Māori playing the British Irish Lions in 2006. That game was pretty special. But as a player, my favourite game that I've ever been a part of, and basically was a spectator, was that semi-final versus Australia in the 2011 World Cup final. And like I said, I was a spectator. I didn't have to do anything. I think I caught maybe one high ball. That was basically my day. And I just got to sit there and watch Corey Jane on the right wing just run an absolute masterclass on the ball in the air. I watched Jerome Kainor, Kieran Reid, Richard McCall just smash every yellow jersey to bits. And it was just, I think, for all the pressure and all the build-up, and I think the thought of knowing that they were probably good enough to beat us if a few things went their way, I think that was a game. And I remember a particular point in the game, late in the first half, and I was sitting back waiting, in case somebody kicked. I was on the left wing that game, and just watching them just coming wave after wave and just getting absolutely pelted. And our boys were just absolutely dinging them, and I thought, this is not bad, And Brad Thorne stands up from the scrum and gives the big fist pump. I was like, yeah, we got this. And that was maybe 30 minutes into the game.
That's insane. Actually, you were talking about pounding the famous yellow jersey. We all know what we're on about now. You absolutely obliterating Quade Cooper is a sight to behold. It's one of my favourite hits, is when you absolutely just run through Quade.
I think a lot of people like that one because of just, again, like the build-up with what happened in Hong Kong, where he's pushed Richie in the head on the ground. And then I think we go to Brisbane, and he's come out later and said, look, I definitely need him in the head intentionally, which we all knew at the time. And then so he'd sort of put himself in a position where it was always going to be a tough place come to New Zealand, which is his, home country. He lived just around the corner from me in Tokoroa. So we grew up, he's the same age as my younger brother, but we grew up just around the corner from each other. Sort of put himself as the bad guy, and the All Blacks love a bad guy, and that was Quade. And unfortunately, I think that's why the tackle actually gets so much airtime, because it actually, it was a good hit, but I should have turned the ball over, and instead, he's managed to get to his feet, keep the ball, and they actually move it away. And I remember the review after the game with Smithy, and he's like, yeah, look, good hit, but don't try to go for the ball, go past the ball. It should have been a turnover. So even with a hit like that, there's still plenty to work on.
Yeah, always. But what is actually your most, apart from the Quade Cooper one, what is your most or favourite hit? What's your most memorable?
Most favourite hit? Yeah, I don't do many anymore. They're a bit tough to remember for nowadays, because obviously I've had to manage the body a little bit differently, try to tackle a bit lower and a bit softer. I don't know. I think favourite, I don't know, I remember one against the Cheetahs a few years back. And the reason why I liked it was a bit of a momentum changer, and it was open field. It was off a midfield scrum, and they went to go to it was basically a 2-on-2 in open field. And, those can be the times where you try to be a bit more passive and just try to make sure you make the tackle. But, it was a good tackle, knocked them over, got up and turned the ball over. And so probably, if that's just thinking off the top of my head right now, that would probably, be something like that. Otherwise, there's a bunch when I was a kid, because I was a little fella and I was playing in a small town where everyone's predominantly like Māori or Pacific Islander. And so, I'd play kids from Patatadu or places that were, I'd be 35 kilos, they'd be nearly 100. So there'd be a few as a young fella that I really enjoyed. But yeah, that's probably one against the Cheetahs. Just that's because I can't really filter through them all in my head.
Fair enough. I'll take your word for it though. But what was it? What was your actual experience? Because you have represented the Maori All Blacks as well, haven't you? So what was your whole experience there?
What was my what? Sorry.
What was your experience in the Maori All Black camp? When you?
Oh, it was again another great experience, and so the way it all worked out, because I was meant to be. So I played my first year of New Zealand 21s, and we lost in Argentina. So we lost, we didn't win it, and the 5 years or something before us, we won. So that was pretty disappointing. And then the second year, I got picked to go again, and the summit was in France, and I was really looking forward to it. And it was, the bulk of the guys that I'd played New Zealand 19s with, and a lot had played that year before as well. And maybe a week before we were meant to go away, I got a phone call from the New Zealand Māoris to say, hey, you need to, we've had a few injuries, why don't you come into our camp? And to be honest, when I first got that call, I was gutted. Obviously, I mean that like I was super proud to be, and obviously looking back, obviously super proud to be a play for New Zealand Māori, but at the time, it'd been a bunch of guys that we'd played. Most of us had come through the sort of New Zealand under 16s as well. So we went 16s, 19s, 21s. And I was looking forward to trying to put that 21s sort of hoodoo to bed and winning that next year. And with all these guys that we'd been together our whole sort of careers, a lot of us were just starting to play Super Rugby. So when I got the call, I was a little bit disappointed. And then it's a bit like Japan, to be honest. After I sort of left the group and got down, I think the boys were in Christchurch. Obviously, then everything started to hit me. Obviously, the jersey, the culture behind the jersey, and what it means, like the great Māori All Blacks that have been before. And as soon as I sort of arrived there, I knew, like, okay, this is where you're meant to be, and this is something to cherish. And to the couple of weeks we went over to America. It was Churchill Cup back then. I think we played America, Ireland A, Scotland A, something like those. But the tour, it was absolutely incredible on every sense of a tour. So we, as a team, we played really well. We had a really high quality team. Then with John O'Gibbs, guys like Neil Brew, and some really great Māori All Blacks. And so yeah, we went up there. Rugby was awesome. Won all our games, won the title. But then also off field, we were able to. I was 21 at the time. Going out with the lads and exploring America, somewhere I'd never been before. So we did with San Francisco to start. And back then it wasn't a professional or high performance sort of team, the Māori. So although obviously they performed every week to the highest standard, it was still quite relaxed in terms of like a sort of national team. It wasn't like the All Blacks where, obviously everything hinged on how you played on the Saturday. So, we were quite relaxed during the weeks. We'd have lots of socials, we'd get out, we'd have fun, and then we'd turn up on the Saturdays. And it was a really amazing experience. And, I think 4 or 5 games I played in the end is just 4 or 5 of the, some of the greatest caps or games that I've been a part of, just because of the culture, just because of the team we had and the flexibility around how we could play. We were basically just encouraged to go out and throw the ball around, and it was a bloody great time.
It sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for any youngsters either just breaking through at their club or just want to get into rugby in general?
Oh, there's tons of advice. I don't know where to start, to be honest, but I think the reason why, if I look at my own career, my own path, I loved rugby, and I didn't do it, although I always felt from a kid that I was going to be an All Black, and I felt like all through my life I made decisions to try and make that happen. I played rugby because I loved it. And, I know now, obviously, as you become a professional, you get paid for it, but it was never about being paid to play. It was just the enjoyment of it. So I think that's the first thing, is just to enjoy it. And I think secondly, if you are actually committed to trying to achieve something, whether it is just to break into your club's first 15 or your high school team or your age group team, whatever it is that obviously there's a price to pay if you want to do anything that's worth doing. So practice and do what others aren't really prepared to do. That's all I would say. So like there's a few people out there that are fortunate enough to be blessed with all the ability without having to put in too much work, and that's lucky for some. But I know for me personally, that was never me. I've had to work hard and do all the extras and do everything I could to give myself the best chance. And so the two things would be just enjoy it, enjoy the journey, whatever the journey is, enjoy it. And then if you want it, you got to pay the price. You got to put the work in.
Yeah, I mean, well said. And I'll hope that some of our younger listeners definitely take that on board. Last part of this full chat, quick fire questions. So it's to get to know Richard Kahui.
Okay, go. I'm ready. Nothing controversial on here, is it?
No. Not yet. Anyway. Never.
Don't ask me Blues or Crusaders. Don't ask me that. It's a no to both.
It's a no to both. That's fine. That's good to know. Favorite beer after a match?
Waikato Draft.
Strength and conditioning or cardio?
Ooh, I would probably go cardio.
Oh no.
I'm not a big fan of the gym.
Fair enough.
I do it because I have to, but I think I'd rather run.
Fair enough. Favorite style of food?
Asian, and I'll narrow it down even more, and I'd say Japanese.
It's like sushi and all that, yeah.
Yeah, everything Japanese, everything.
Fair enough. Sunrise or sunset?
Well, I've always been a sunrise man, but now living on the west coast of Australia, we're having a few more sunsets, so I'll go for sunset tonight.
Fair enough. Favorite film?
Tough one, really tough one. I think I'm going to go Saving Private Ryan. Obviously today in New Zealand is Anzac Day, and New Zealand, Australia, Anzac Day. Obviously there's a bit of reality. It seems like there's a bit more realism in that movie. And then to be something a little more comedic, I'd go with something like Wedding Crashers.
Oh, brilliant. I love that film.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Favorite song?
Jeez, it's not really quick fire, is it? I should be better. Look, I'm gonna have to go. I've got too many genres right now. It's Tevin Campbell, Can We Talk? So early 90s, if anyone's interested. Tevin Campbell, Can We Talk?
I'll go for that.
Basically a love song.
Oh, you big song.
Yeah.
Favorite hobby away from rugby?
Golf. I could hit 1,000 balls a day if I had the opportunity.
Fair enough. So what's your handicap then?
Me.
I don't know what that means. I don't even know why I asked. I don't know anything about golf.
No. My handicap is I'm off for 7 at the moment.
Right. Fair enough.
So it's probably better than what I play, but it's all right.
Nice. Favorite pizza topping?
Jalapenos.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Does pineapple go on pizza?
I've grown up as a no, it doesn't. But more recently, my wife and kids have pineapple, so sometimes you just got to take it.
I feel that's a safe answer, so I'll allow that. Biggest inspiration from rugby and away from rugby, and why?
I suppose nowadays, like starting, it was just enjoyment. But now, I've got 3 young kids and a wife, and they support me and come to the games. And I think the last game we played at home against the Tars, my kids come along, and it's the first time in a while that with COVID and stuff that they've come out. And I think just that they're definitely my inspiration. I think as a dad, I want to try and set a standard for the girls. I've got 2 girls and a boy. The standard for the girls to aspire to. I want to be the man they want to marry, if you know what I mean. So set a standard for whoever, young Reggie or whoever comes to the front door. They're definitely my inspiration. Obviously, my wife, she's amazing. She's moved all around the world to help me live my dream, and I definitely couldn't have done it without her strength and her ability to mother without me.
Oh, amazing. I mean, I'm a dad as well, so I'd like to set the standards for my little boy as well. So yeah, I can't agree with more. The last one, I wouldn't say it's controversial, but it's just a bit of fun. Force or Chiefs?
Oh, look, I'm gonna have to go with the Chiefs. Obviously, 6 years, I think it was 7 years at the Chiefs. A really young time in my life. Just a longer catalogue of memories there. Being at home, with my mum and dad, and so Hamilton was a pretty special place. I mean, it's there's no beaches like here in Perth, but geez, it's the city of the future, Hamilton.
Fair enough. And if you could sign for any Northern Hemisphere club, who would it be and why?
I would
Edinburgh. Love my dream. Come on.
No. I think I'd go for Exeter.
Yes,
because
that's fine.
Oh, nice. We've had a few boys, obviously Greg Holmes and Ollie Atkins and a few others sort of roll through Exeter, and just because of that, like I haven't really supported anyone up there. I just kind of watch as a fan. And I think the one thing about being down here in New Zealand with Super Rugby and the ITM Cup, or whatever it is called at the moment, Kiwis don't really watch much of the Northern Hemisphere. Obviously, time of night doesn't really suit, and there's still sort of this preconceived idea that it's all sort of 10-man rugby, kick the ball away, scrum and maul. But mate, the footy up there at the moment, and you can see it through the international sides, it's pretty incredible. The accuracy at breakdown, the ability to move the ball, and it's an actual, to watch them, it looks at the moment to me looks like a better brand of footy than what we're playing down here. In some of the games. Not all of them.
Fair enough. That's quite interesting, actually. Just for the last one, just for fun, have you got any top 3, maybe top 5 Northern Hemisphere players currently, or ever, or both?
Ever? Well, I just saw a photo pop up of Gareth Anscombe with Elwyn Jones. I think someone that's done everything that he's done in the game. It's pretty special. Hard to go past Rob Kearney. Obviously, he came down here for a year. Would have liked to be on the field more than he was in the end, but really enjoyed his sharing his sort of knowledge and his passion and his ability to sort of see the game a little bit differently. His ability to see, okay, there might have been a missed tackle, but the missed tackle is not the issue. This is the issue, and him and I had some really good conversations. Anyone else? Oh, Bundy Archie. There's a few Kiwis up there now, so I'll pick the Kiwis that are up there.
Fair enough. All valid choices. I mean, you've named 2 legends and an absolute monster, so can't argue with you there. So yeah, you've absolutely smashed it, Richie.
Nice, perfect.
So this has been the final whistle with Richard Kahui. We will see you next time.